Emily Elizabeth, and I'm the host of the What Fulfills You podcast, a show for and about individuals always seeking to be their best selves. On this show, we talk all about building the mindset, finding the right careers, creating meaningful relationships, and so much more. Welcome to the What Fulfills You podcast. Shelby.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It worked out in such good timing because you texted me and you were like, hey, you're going to be in New York. And I know we've been trying to do an in-person podcast. And I don't know the last time I saw you. It might have been
quite a while ago.
A while.
Probably over a year ago.
Definitely over a year. Yeah. So it's been a while.
Yeah. But I've been following, keeping up to date.
Yeah. Likewise.
Love your content.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to start off because obviously I know you and I'm sure a lot of listeners have heard of you, but maybe take us back to your early YouTube days because I feel like most people probably know you from YouTube to some degree. And I feel like it'd be kind of fun to share literally the beginning, how you got into it, when it started to grow, and also just kind of like your journey through your teens and like your early mid-20s with that career.
All of that, yeah. I started YouTube when I was 14. Me and my sister both did, so I have a twin sister.
Yeah.
And we really did it out of boredom because where we lived we couldn't walk to any of our friends. We had moved to this different neighborhood where there was no one else our age really. Mm-hmm. So we'd do gymnastics and then come back one summer and just be so bored. But I always loved making videos. I saved up all my money from chores to buy a video camera on overstock.com. I remember.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So wait, what year was that? Or around what year?
Probably I probably bought that in 2007 or 2008.
Wow. Okay.
I think 2008, 2009 is when I started just making videos for fun and editing them in middle school, you know, that kind of thing. Little music videos, whatever. I feel like a lot of kids end up doing that and then later become YouTubers, just, Yeah. And then my sister Monica was the one who realized, there's a community of people on here making beauty content. There's a whole, I don't know, a community really.
Yeah, community of people.
And they're getting views and you can have some strategy to it. There are certain videos that do better than others. Mm-hmm. And so she had done a how to curl your hair video and forgot about it and then realized later it got, 100,000 views or something.
Wow.
We're whoa, we should make videos like this. This is really cool. Plus we were getting into hair and makeup, going into high school.
Okay.
I loved watching those videos and buying. It was so exciting to go to the mall and buy a MAC eyeshadow.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yes, I remember those days. And that was definitely how I got into YouTube or more being a viewer was watching beauty videos.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah.
I love them. I loved hauls and all of that. So we did that for a long time all throughout high school and made some money from it. By the time I was 15, I was probably making, $400 a month or whatever on AdSense. It was so different back then.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And then, by the time I graduated high school, I got my first brand deal for $1,000 or something and was okay, this is interesting. And decided I went to Orange Coast College.
Okay.
So kind of near Chapman.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to go to Chapman, but I didn't get into the film school actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so, I went there, which I think worked out because I would have spent a lot of money and probably had student loans and whatever. And and I took film classes at Orange Coast College, but was just putting a lot of time into YouTube.
Okay.
It was nice because it's a community college, so you have a lot of time. There isn't as much of a social life aspect at a community college, so it's okay, I'll just keep making videos and meet other YouTubers, all of that. Now that I was in Orange County, it was always the dream to move to California too. So I was so happy.
Okay, yeah. That was my dream too because I moved from Pennsylvania to OC, for college. So
yeah, I remember having palm trees in my room growing up, being like pictures of them, not actual ones. Yeah.
How long did you live in California for? I feel now it's kind of. Did you ever live with other YouTubers by any chance?
Yeah. Kind of
in LA. I'm trying to think. I'm now because I kind of blanked on the fact that you actually lived in California at one point. But then now I'm thinking, wait a second, I definitely feel like I've seen you have California content, and maybe it was through another YouTuber I was following. I just was putting because it's so long ago though, right?
It was
long time
2 years ago that I lived there, but I lived there for 8 years because I moved when I was 18.
Oh, okay.
And then I put my stuff in storage. I was like, oh, I'm gonna temporarily leave.
Yeah.
For like when I was 26, and I haven't come back. Although I kind of want to, you know, maybe we'll get into the whole moving thing.
Yeah.
I'm here in New York deciding kind of. But anyway, so it was really in that time of taking film classes, whatever, like the whole YouTube landscape was growing, and I was just trying different strategies.
Yeah.
And I could see that it was becoming more of an industry because there were like managers and agents and things, and I was living off of it from when I was 18. Like I moved to California and paid for my own school and apartment and everything from that time, all from YouTube. And it was like modestly, I probably made like $30,000 that first year when I was 18, but like still on YouTube when you're 18, I was like, whoa, I'm living large. I felt like, but that's how I got started really, and still been doing it, but just changing up my content a lot from back then. Yeah.
How has your content changed since then? Because I know you, if I remember correctly, you dived into real estate a bit, right? Did you at one point share real estate content with your sister? Or like things around like my cost Airbnb. Of living? Yeah, and then I know your Airbnb stuff we'll definitely get into. But like, how has that evolved as you've grown? And have you seen like a change in your audience and like how you approach?
For sure.
Yeah, like how has that looked like, especially being like an OG YouTuber?
Yeah. Back in, say, 2014, that time, it was more of the lifestyle beauty videos I was still making.
Right.
Back to school. A lot of us who made videos in that time call it the saturation era.
Okay.
Because everyone just up to the saturation on their videos. And it appealed to younger kids.
Yeah.
Probably in high school or maybe younger, even middle school, probably. And like that's fun when you are that age too, but I think for a while I think a lot of other YouTubers who were doing this at the time just didn't know what else to make.
Yeah.
And at that time YouTube, it seemed like there wasn't an audience for say personal finance or whatever. There's a lot more viewers on YouTube now, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But back then it was like, okay, comedy videos or you do beauty videos, but if you uploaded a personal finance video, that wasn't a niche yet. So I don't know if it would have really done well. Maybe.
Yeah.
So back then it was more the like beauty lifestyle stuff. And then I was kind of like, what am I doing? I sort of went back to school even at one point, just randomly taking classes again because I was like, I was like burned out and not sure. Like, I didn't love the videos I was making. So I just started trying new stuff because they weren't doing as well either.
Yeah.
Like, I went from getting 100,000 views a video to 10,000. Like, huge decrease.
Oh, wow. Has that been, like, the thing nowadays, too, in general, where just getting views is a lot harder than it was, like, 8 years ago?
Or kinda.
Okay. On YouTube specifically, I mean.
Yeah. I feel like YouTube is... I think it's a little harder now because short form might be taking some of that.
Yeah.
But at this time, it was just, I think my viewers were just aging out of the content that I was making. And I was too. So none of it was really working. So I tried photography videos. I just thought, what am I actually interested in? What should I should just take some risks here because clearly the safe bet wasn't doing that well. So I might as well just try some random video topics and see how they do.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of photography videos for a while. And then I started doing, I don't even know how I went from photography to other stuff. I just started trying any random thing, I think.
Yeah.
But I found a style that I really liked, which was a more like documentary style. Interviewing people, getting a lot of B-roll, doing voiceovers, and making it, I don't know, I just approach it as a mini documentary.
Okay.
I try to. Sometimes not as much. Like some of the videos are more basic.
Yeah.
I'm working on one that's just, apartment tours in New York. It's not really a documentary.
Right.
That was kind of, once I had that shift, I feel like things really started working and my channel started doing a lot better. It felt like things really,
Yeah. I'm curious though, because you've been doing, and it's so funny, right? I see how like natural you are on camera. Like, how did you overcome like judging yourself like while filming, or like even if you're vlogging on like the streets of New York or something? How did you overcome the fear of being judged or like how you looked? Because I feel like when I tried to vlog, like way back when in college, and I was like, you know, playing around with it, that was something that I just didn't, not that I didn't enjoy, because I think being on camera was fine, but I just think like watching myself and editing was like a bit of a cringe. But then I felt that way when I was first editing my podcast, and I had to hear myself, but then I got over it. But then the visual part can be a little harder. You know what I mean? Like, so, like it's just like, how do you get over that? And then especially get over that in front of other people. I think that's a big one.
It's funny because I actually think podcasts feel more cringy to me to edit.
That's so funny. I think we talked about that before, because you told me that you don't like editing the podcast.
My voice. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. Okay, one thing I think that helped was I was just so young when I started that I didn't even think twice about it. And it did help that my sister was doing YouTube too. So it was like, okay, we're going to school, but I don't know. It just felt like less, I didn't tell.
Less alone?
Yeah, I didn't really like tell people about it. And then by the time people at my school, for example, found out about it, I had a good amount of subscribers that people were like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. So it's like, I always tell people, you don't have to go like putting it on your Instagram day one. If you start a YouTube channel, people probably aren't going to find it unless you're promoting it on like your personal pages. True. And so, yeah, I think that helps. Like, you don't have to put it out there for everyone, although it probably is helpful at the start. Yeah. But yeah, vlogging in public, making videos in public, probably just from doing it for so long. Like, I started just making videos in my room, learning how to talk to a camera that way. Of course, when I look back at those old videos, it's more cringy, like probably seem more shy in them, and like no one's that good on camera at the beginning. Yeah. So that's a good place to start, is just like in your room, like just like see how you look on camera, edit it yourself, and like it's cringy, but whatever. You have to know that it's so cringy for everyone at the beginning. Right. And then making videos in public, I don't know, like it definitely is uncomfortable at first. Right. I will say New York is like the best place to vlog in public because no one cares.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I would still feel self-conscious filming. If I had a tripod and a microphone and I was in a random place in LA, I would feel weird. Right. But here I wouldn't.
Everyone just like walks past because like it's like such a normal in the culture.
Yeah. So, but I'll still do it from time to time, or I'll have a videographer shoot so it doesn't feel like as just, I don't know. I feel like if you're by yourself doing it, it feels a little bit more uncomfortable than if you're with someone. It's like, oh, we're shooting something. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I get that. I'm curious, how did you build longevity in this career path? Like, at what point were you like, okay, I'm gonna go all in on YouTube and being a content creator and like through maybe sponsorships and like AdSense, like things like that? How did you kind of cultivate almost like a strategy behind, okay, this is how I'm going to make money and for my career, right? Like, this is what I'm going to do for a living.
I feel like a big part of it is just trying to be adaptable. Yeah. Because these platforms are always changing, and I need to take my own advice here with like short form content. I haven't been as good about. But I never had a moment where I had to take a big plunge, like drop out of school or quit a job. I just sort of did things at the same time, which I think is a fine path to take. Like, there are different ways of doing things. There's the, like, you really take the plunge and you drop out of school, whatever, or do something on the side. Right. And yeah, you might, it's like a lot of extra work because you're trying to do two things at once. Right. But for me, my risk tolerance is just not about like just fully quitting something like that. Yeah. But really just, I guess it just worked since I had graduated high school and was taking those community college classes. Right. And I could see how it was growing too. Okay.
I feel like, though, you were probably wise with your money. If I feel like just from observing, and we'll probably dive into like you getting that place in Palm Springs, and then you rented out on Airbnb too, right? Yeah. I feel like these are obviously, and I'm certain that you're like savvy with like finances and real estate, and I forget who I was talking about this with the other day, but just it was Natalie actually. We were just talking about the fact that full transparency, I think the average 26, 25-year-old male or female in the US right now has little to no idea on like half of these things, from like finance, like financial literacy, or even like the difference between a 401k and a Roth IRA, or like different reasons on why you should like rent versus like buy, and like different benefits of like buying and like flipping a home, and just like different things like that. And like we're all very young, but Natalie and I were kind of like, yeah, it's a little concerning that not many people actually know these things and actually do these things to prepare. But like I feel like you guys definitely did it at a young age, because like when you're making that much money at 18, 30K for 18 is a lot.
For
you know what I mean? Most people at 18 don't even have a job because most of them are in school. So like you probably had to learn, I'm assuming, how to be like savvy with like what you were gaining, right? Like how did you kind of manage that part?
Yeah, I've always just been more of a saver than a spender,
right?
Which is part
I feel
of
like you are more of a minimalist, right? Like
kind of. I mean, I did nomad life for like 6 months, which is hard, but
it's hard.
That's part of why like the thought of moving to New York is hard for me, because you spend so much more than somewhere else. But when I was 18, I wasn't as in the know of that stuff. It was more of just like, okay, just, you know, be conscious of not ever spending more than you make kind of thing.
Totally.
I knew, I should probably invest, but I don't think I necessarily had then. Luckily, I did have a tax person give me advice and like start a 401k and stuff like pretty early with that.
Right.
I got way more into it probably when I was like 22 or 23. Like I started investing.
But that's still really early for like, if you think about like the average person. Most people don't even do like that on their own, and if they do have something, like most of the time at that age it's often through parents or like someone that had help them get that started, and versus like knowing exactly what you're doing on your own, like taking money that you've made, which again, to be fair, not many have made that much at 22, but to take that, be responsible with it and not like overspend it, and then actually invest it or do a lot of things like you did, which was like buy a place and actually like, you know?
Yeah. No, it's like so cool how now we have so much more information. Shout out Graham, Stephan, and all of them. Like I watch a lot of personal finance content. Which is great because my parents are like, you know, fine with their money and stuff, but they're not financial advisors.
Right.
And I've learned so much just on YouTube. And I do think it's really important. And one thing I think is interesting is whenever I make a video that's more about investing or personal finance, it's a lot more guy viewers. And that makes me sad. Yeah. Because I'm like, oh, come on, girls. Right. No, but a lot of girls do invest, but like I feel like if that number could go up for sure. But I mean, a lot of it I've just learned online, and even things like I know a lot of people are afraid to just simply check their bank account, but it's so good to just get yourself comfortable with doing that. Yes. I don't have like a really super strict budget, but I look at my bank account a lot. I look at the stock market a lot. Anytime it's red, I'm like, oh, I'm going to put some more money in. Like, I don't know. It's being aware of it and seeing how that can change your life. But even with real estate, like I didn't even know I'd be able to buy a house. Like sometimes it's hard to be like, oh, can I? How much do I need to make to do that? Right. But there's a lot of content out there with that now. Like I didn't even realize at the time when me and my sister bought a townhouse in Seattle, and I was like, can we afford that? What? But she had kind of become friends with this real estate agent and realized like, oh, we can. Yeah. Although now housing is a lot different than in 2019. Right. Which is crazy. But yeah, I'm just trying to share what I learned though.
Totally. Yeah. Were there any basic, or actually maybe a better way to say it, like do you have any basic tips on like maybe it's even the savviness of different credit cards or different bank accounts that you remember that you used or you tried out in the beginning days that just kind of helped you get into, like for anyone listening, like a lot of my listeners are young girls who are like, you know what, you're right, I want to become more savvy and I want to actually open a bank account with a bank that's actually better for like to put my money in there, for example, or like a credit card that is more worthwhile to use, you know, like there's just a lot of those things that people it's often actually only learn through like the female influencers they listen to, right? Or like they're female podcasters, and like it's not like they're gonna listen to the same guy, male investors or like male YouTubers that like we might listen to, but I think it's like passing on that knowledge. But yeah, I'm curious if you have any that come to mind that are like good stepping stones.
Yeah, I do have favorite account. Like I try a lot of different like credit cards and accounts just to stay in the know of which I like.
Yeah.
I really like SoFi.
Okay.
And I've worked with them before, but like this isn't like a sponsored thing.
Right.
I just really like it and I use it personally because you can invest all within the same app, so it's really convenient. Yeah.
Okay.
And they have a high interest savings account.
Yeah.
The biggest thing really is if you're with one of the biggest banks, they are most likely going to offer you a very low like savings
like
interest rate.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be like 0.01%.
It's so bad. Yeah, because I moved my money. I remember once I was like reading Ramit Sethi. Have you heard of him? Yeah. And he in his book it was about like putting your savings. I started
reading that.
Yeah. In like the high yield savings account. And so I moved my money and like he had his recommendations. I moved mine to a Capital One account.
That's a good one.
Yeah, right. So it's just stuff like that like for me reading that was like aha moments, and I'm like hoping some people like have these aha moments too. But yeah, you said SoFi.
Yeah, okay. SoFi is a good one, but it's like really any of them. It's usually the banks that are more online because the ones that have physical branches, they have so much overhead.
Yes.
Although I did hear that Chase offers some kind of high interest savings account now. So just looking for a high interest savings account, it's like easiest way you can put your money somewhere to actually be earning a little bit, even though it's not a ton. It's like
better
4%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Better than like the big banks. So because I remember I used to have mine in a Wells Fargo. Yeah. And once I saw the comparison, I was like, oh my gosh. But then like most people don't know any better, especially if that's like your first bank account or if that's what your parents told you, whatever. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes it's the research, but also business banks too. I feel like this is a good one for fellow entrepreneurs listening. Do you have a favorite like business bank?
I do. Okay. Mercury.
Oh really?
Yeah, it's so good.
Why? I recently have you tried Novo?
I use that for my Palm Springs.
Oh, okay. So look at us like
I like them both.
Okay.
But I don't think Novo offers a high interest thing, do they?
No, so I don't have a savings with them. I only have it as like my business bank, like checking account.
Yeah.
And again, that's all like research based stuff. But I feel like I remember at one point, maybe like last year or something, I saw you posting about
which
yes, right.
And I was getting recommendations. So many people were like Mercury, and the interface is so good. It's so you can send, you can do wire transfers for free. They just do everything right, and they have a treasury account, and so I keep most of it in there.
Okay.
So it's similar to a high interest savings account.
Okay.
It's pretty much the same thing.
Mercury. Is that known to be really like highly used by entrepreneurs or like small business owners, things like that? You know how like they market towards a certain...
It's a big one for startups.
Okay.
That's what they mostly market to, but you can be a YouTuber, content creator, whatever. It's a business bank account, not really a personal one.
Right. So this is definitely for like freelancers out there who need, because this is one of those things where my first business bank account was Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
And I literally did a whole revamp like a year and a half ago.
That's so good.
But yeah, when I was like, what am I doing? Like this stuff needs to be moved. I need like a more, you know what I mean? But like it was only through reading and like listening to Tim Ferriss and like all these guests that he had, and Ramit Sethi was one of them. And I'm like, I need to move my stuff around.
Totally. Yeah. Because it's like something like Wells Fargo, like the interface isn't even good, everything. Not to fully hate on them. Maybe they'll get it together one day. But yeah, Mercury I really
And also there's usually a minimum, right? So for anyone that needs or wants to separate their personal and like business account, but let's say like they know that they're not going to always keep, I don't know, $300 in there or $500 because it's still so new. That's a factor too. I think like especially if you are doing a startup or something that's going to not always have the minimum in it. I think that's why these bank accounts are also better. I remember reading that because I was looking for certain things when I was starting new things. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like different aspects.
Yeah.
Oh, so Mercury doesn't require a minimum in there? Because you know how like Wells Fargo charges you if you don't have like, I think for their business account at least, like I think it's a minimum 500 or 300 in the account. So you know how you get charged a fee, right? We're going all like savvy here, but like, right? But yeah, no, that's like the stuff that
Mercury,
I feel like
I don't get charged any fees.
Okay.
Like, they're really good.
Yeah.
I do love them.
Yeah.
But also investing in, it's like, okay, a high interest savings account is great, but a lot of people will use that for their emergency fund because 4%, it's not like you're getting 4% every month.
Right.
It's APY. So you're getting 4% or 5% or whatever it is over the course of a year.
Yeah.
So if you have $100,000 in there, you'll get $4,000 over the course of the year.
Right.
So like, calling it 4% makes it almost sound better than it is. It's like you're really getting like 0.0 some, not even a full percent every month. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something, but it's definitely a good spot to keep an emergency fund, something like that in.
I agree.
And one thing I'll say is like, it's intimidating to get your finances together, but it feels so good.
It feels so good.
You're like, oh my God, I have my life together. Like you just feel like secure, I would say. So highly recommend it. It's just intimidating to get started.
Yeah.
But
I think the problem is too, right? And I heard this on another show, like women don't often talk about, like, we go out to dinners, but what do we really talk about? Well, we're never going to talk about finance or like credit cards or what credit card you're using.
I definitely do more than the average person.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, right. But then it's like also like, that's what I'm saying. You and I, and like, again, I'm talking about this with Natalie too, but it's like the common denominator is that we're all entrepreneurs and then we kind of have to manage our own finances. And I think it's like us encouraging other young girls to be aware of these things. Cause I think if you think long term, this is my personal perspective, but if you are a female and you are savvy and independent with your own finances, you're later on, you have a lot more options in terms of like the power to decide, not because of financial reasons, whether you stay in a relationship or things like that, right? Because that ends up being the case where I have some older girlfriends and that is kind of the position they're in.
That's
where
tough.
Right. And it's super tough, but they'll acknowledge it out loud and they'll kind of tell me like, shit, I wish I did more of your approach when, you know, a few years back, because they were maybe like having a lot of fun and spending on their credit card. And mind you, I think we've all, you know, skewed in different spectrums of that, right? But I think it's a matter of the sooner you know, the better, right? So like a lot of my listeners are like on average, like they're 23, 24 years old right now. And they're like, could be realizing like, oh shit, you know? Because it's harder when you hit like 27 and then you're still in that position, right? Like, so if you're listening to this and you're in your early 20s and you do this now, you're going to be in a lot better position when 4 years from now.
I think the best thing is just building the habit of it.
Yeah.
So even if you're only investing like $5 a month in the stock market, then you have skin in the game, you're checking it. And it doesn't, whatever's the easiest way to do it. Like there's a lot of apps and ways you can do it. Like I have my favorite ways, but even something like Robinhood, it's like probably the easiest one for people to get started. I think it's just important to just start building those habits, because then you're more likely when you get paid a sum of money to invest it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then once you start seeing some returns, it is more motivating.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, you think about it like, okay, do I want this? Like I've said no to trips. I mean, I don't know. It's like live your life, but I go on a lot of trips. I'm like, I don't need to be traveling all the time. And I've said no to more because I'm like, okay, I just know I'm going to spend a lot of money and like, I don't need to do that, and felt good about it. Okay. So, like, I'm looking at all my finances. But I definitely spend on trips too.
Right. Yeah. How like what are some basic things that you've done in the past or maybe even now that it helped you with maybe budgeting or being more mindful with your money? Or for example, something I learned through Remit Sethi was like having or setting up those rules in your accounts where like maybe if money's like coming into your checking, where there's like an automatic pull into your savings or it automatically transfers to like an IRA or an investment account. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Things like that, like that makes it like less of a I have to think about this. And that's what I like about Novo too. And I don't know if Mercury has this, but anytime I have like money coming in to the business bank account, there's like these what they call reserves where it takes out percentage, whatever rule I set.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? It's like so tech forward. So like, let's say there's like 1,000 that comes in and I set up a rule that you set aside, I don't know, 15% for tax, right? And it automatically puts it in like a different little folder. So I don't even see that amount in the account balance. I see it in the total balance, but in the account balance, it shows me everything left after it pulled everything into the reserves. And you can have multiple reserves. So you can have like, you know, you could create the percentage. You can do like one for tax, one for, I don't know, your rent, like one, food, stuff like that. And it helps like break it down for you.
That's a good proactive
right? Isn't it really cool?
Yeah.
And then you can take that and like transfer to, so then I'll just take it and transfer to my designated account. So if I had a rule that was set up where it's like 10% into like my savings, then I go into that reserve and then I transfer it to my Capital One high yield savings account. That's cool. Right?
Yeah, I don't think Mercury has that because it's more just like business, I guess.
Okay.
But there might be
they should be sponsoring this
maybe
podcast.
In the more personal, I know. At least put an affiliate link,
right?
No, but like, it's so funny because in my real life, I have influenced friends to like join these banks now. Right. Like more of my friends
it's
from
fun.
Seattle have talked about it, or they've asked about it. So I'm like, oh, I guess I'm influencing, because I don't even think of myself as an influencer. But anyway,
yeah, you are.
I think of myself firstly as like video creator.
Yes,
like
that's true. That's true. That is like,
okay, I guess
that's how I think of you too. Honestly.
Yeah. But back to the like best budgeting things. I mean, I do think that
like habits. Like, you're talking about habits.
It's like making it as easy as possible. I do have the automatic transfer to an investment account on.
You'd have that. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like that's the best one, because then you're dollar cost averaging in. If you don't know what that is, it's basically you're getting the average of the overall stock market. I mean, I don't like try and mess around with individual stocks or anything like that. Like, I'm just buying into a mutual fund, like very basic, but I know it's generally, this isn't financial advice, just what I do, right? But it's like generally known to be not a super risky way to do it, especially when you're spacing it out like that. Yeah. And just making that system as easy as possible by having it transfer automatically. But I also will go in, if I say do a brand deal or something, I have more money coming in than usual, then I'll put more in manually. Okay. And like, I'll have fun with it too, where like, I do kind of try and time it. Like, I'll look when it's been down like a couple percent, because it's so volatile right now. In the last few years, like it's not used to be like that. But I'll if I'm gonna put a lump sum extra in, I'll wait for a red day, which is basically where the stock market's down, because might as well, any given week there's usually at least one red day. So I kind of try and do that. And I found, I'm like, okay, I'm low-key like, I'm not like a trader, but I've made some good moves. Although I don't encourage people to do that, but like, some individual stocks just for fun. Yeah.
And I think if people want to get into that, I think, I'm sure you probably agree with this too. It's like, do your heavy research and actually understand what you're doing. And I think there are actual experts out there where you can watch and listen to podcasts where there are people. And I think a variation is important too, right? Like, don't just listen to one guy or one girl talk about it. Like, listen to various people on their strategy, because there's like a wide range of approaches, and I think you have to know what you're doing before you do it. And I don't know, personally, I wouldn't, unless they're extremely successful in it, I wouldn't take advice from someone my own age in trading specifically, right? Like, definitely ask an experienced, again, it's all about experience, so I'm not saying it's correlated to age, but more often than not, someone that's like 20 years older than me and has done this time and time again.
They've seen like a lot of different markets.
Exactly.
They haven't seen like, maybe if someone started investing a few years ago, like things just run up a ton. Although now we have seen it go down and back up and all of that. But I agree. I think another thing, a lot of people think, oh, I need a financial advisor. Or like, it just sounds more complicated than it really is. Like, if you just are putting it into a mutual fund, like that's pretty safe. You don't need a financial advisor.
Right.
And that's something I like that Ramit Sethi says too.
Yes. Because it averages at what, like 9% a year?
Around there, like 8 to 10 or
somewhere between 8 to 10. Yeah. So I think it's just like a solid, especially once again, if you are a 20-some-year-old with a salary right now and like you're just finding small ways to like fill your cup long term, like these are like the simple ways.
Definitely, yeah. So I feel like that's it's important, even if it's boring.
Right. But I know. This is like the boring stuff that people, I think, especially girls.
But some people are into it. Like, you know, if you want to start learning about it. Yeah.
And be savvy on your own. I mean, I think, right, that also goes into how you bought. I didn't realize you guys bought a townhome in Seattle. Yeah. You guys sell that, or you guys still have that?
We still have it.
Okay.
Because my sister has lived in it the whole time.
Oh, okay.
And now we're both going to move. I've only lived in it this summer because I didn't want to have a lease, because I wanted to buy a place for me to live in. But I don't know if I'm going to. It depends if I'm here or LA, whatever. Right. But we're most likely going to lease it out, because we do like that house. Like, see wanting to live in it again sometime. But yeah, so we have that one. But the one that's more documented on YouTube is the Palm Springs house.
Palm Springs house. Yeah. Can you share that experience? Because I feel like, you know, a lot of people within their 20s has not bought a home like that, and you renovated it, right?
Yeah,
you did renovation. I remember seeing
so much.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was like, you got to share some knowledge. You bought it, you renovated it, and then you sometimes live there, but then mostly rent it out, or is it only renting it out?
Just renting it out, but then I'll go stay at it. So it is a vacation rental. An Airbnb.
Yeah.
Which it's interesting because back then.
And it's just yours, or is it you and your sister?
Me and my sister.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So back when we first started it, it was a different, I guess people thought of Airbnb differently, and so did I. I was like, oh, that seems really cool. Now I can see how people are a little more like, oh, I hate Airbnb making it harder for other people to buy a house, the housing market in general. Like, if there's
why is that?
Because if a bunch of people just have Airbnbs in a neighborhood, it's harder if just you want to buy a house to live in.
Oh, true. Yeah. Okay, I get it. I get that part. Yeah.
I kind of acknowledge that where, okay, I don't know if I would go back in time and do it again, knowing what I know now, for that reason, where I'm like, okay, this isn't great for the greater good of like everyone.
So that's like more of a selfless reason then, right? Like you're doing it because like,
I just think about that, but then also it's not something where it's bringing in some crazy cash flow.
Okay.
But it ended up being a good project for me because I could make a lot of videos about it. But I mean, at the time when I first got that house, I thought it was gonna like make a lot more money.
Okay.
But I've been more real about that on YouTube, how much it makes. Like, I share all of that. Okay. Because I'm like, people should know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't like sell a course on Airbnb or anything. Yeah. Yeah, I just share that. But basically, around the time that we purchased that house, I would even look in LA, I kind of want to, I think I could buy something. Yeah. But you just don't get a lot for your money there. Yeah, and in Palm Springs. Oh, I thought that was suspicious. Oh. Okay. In LA, you don't get a lot for your money, but in Palm Springs, you could get an actual house. And we were really familiar with the area because we have family friends that have a place there that we would go visit. Okay. And I love home renovation shows and everything. I was like, oh, I'd love to do that. That sounds so cool. Yeah. So my sister and I toured a bunch of places during COVID time, and then we ended up finding this one. It was off market, so our real estate agent found it. It was just someone in the neighborhood who was selling it, and they didn't want to put it on the market because they didn't want to stage it and all of that. Okay. Which is a good way to find a house because then you don't end up in a bidding war. Right. That kind of thing. It's just hard to find those. Yes. Good tip is like real estate agents oftentimes might find them if they're really like local to the area. Got it. Know that. Or I know people literally send out flyers, or they'll like look up houses. Yeah. There's like ways online you can find addresses and whatever. It's a numbers game though. I feel like it's kind of hard to find an off market deal like that. Right. So that was a matter of like having a good real estate agent. Right. So we bought that house, and I have like all the numbers online if people are interested in like diving into that. But we did buy it in 2020. Okay. So when interest rates were lower. Yeah. So it is crazy to see now. If I were to buy that same house, I mean, the monthly cost would be double. Right. It's wild. Right.
Yeah. The interest rates are bad right now.
Yeah. Definitely. They're high. Yeah. Yeah. But we renovated that house. I learned a lot doing that.
How long did the renovation take? I remember seeing it like bits and pieces on your story, and of course like Instagram and whatnot, just like the process of doing that, because it looks very different, right? Yeah. Like from like how it was, right?
We redid a lot, completely redid the backyard, except the pool was already there. Redid the kitchen, floors, and one of the bathrooms. Okay. So the house had good bones. Okay. It's a cool mid-century like architectural house. Yeah. So we didn't want to like mess with that. Yeah. But the kitchen, I would say, was kind of like a 90s look. So we gave it like walnut cabinets, a little more mid-century, but kind of more modern too. The renovation took a really long time though. I think we spent like a whole year on it. Oh, wow. At times we weren't even there. Like, we took our time, really. Yeah. You can do a renovation quicker, but they generally say any renovation, it's going to be double the cost and take double the time. Right. Because contractors they're not, I don't want to be like rude about it.
But I've actually heard this too from a real estate friend who's actually been on the podcast. She said this about a contractor,
they just won't show up.
Yeah. She publicized it about like a Hamptons house that she was doing, and I think she said the same thing on Instagram, how like this it was just like really poor execution.
Yeah. A lot of time they won't show up, especially if you've already paid them. They'll start multiple projects. They'll start a new one before they finish yours. Wow. they're just not always the most professional. Like, I think some of them, it's like handwritten, like invoices and stuff.
Oh,
like,
interesting.
It's not like what we're used to, I think, with a more digital type of job. Like, things are just more organized, but that's tricky. And you also don't know, like, I had some contractors that just didn't do a very good job.
Right.
And
how did you manage like all of that though? And then like, especially calculating if renovating would be worth it, right? Like can you break it down maybe the simplest way possible of, okay, you're looking at the price of the house and then estimating how much renovation would be and then estimating, I guess, how much you could rent this out.
Yeah.
And like,
I was basically just so off on all the numbers.
Oh, really? Okay.
So off.
Like, I mean, but that's like a lot of mental calculations.
And it's really hard to know because with renovations, it can depend on your area.
Exactly.
Labor will cost more in different areas.
Yeah.
For the most part, labor is the most expensive part of it.
Okay.
The materials are probably like less than half in labor. It's probably like materials 1/3, labor 2/3. So if you can do anything yourself and you're handy, you'll save a ton of money.
Okay.
Which I've learned more of that stuff. And I actually found I kind of enjoy it too. It's kind of therapeutic to paint or tile or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can save a lot that way. But I was so off. Like, I really had no idea how much, especially landscaping, pouring concrete in the backyard was the most expensive thing.
Oh, okay.
I just had no idea. And I thought I had researched, but I probably was idealizing it a bit. Oh, we can redo a kitchen. We can do an IKEA kitchen, whatever. Once you start tearing into the walls, you're like, well, they're open. We should rewire this. This is the time to replumb something. Right. Everything ends up being more expensive that way. But I also just didn't know that, a kitchen renovation, it's probably not going to be $10,000 or $15,000. It's more likely going to be $30,000.
Oh, wow.
For even like it wasn't that big of a kitchen.
Okay. Was it all worth it? Like, in terms of like, once you guys, I don't know how much you shared on YouTube in terms of like, were you able to recognize there will be a guaranteed return even with all these the cost of the renovations?
I think it has been worth it because the house, it pretty much looks like it'll break even this year. In terms of like, I won't have to pay any expenses for it. Okay. We'll see by the end of the year. It's harder in Palm Springs. Like, it's a very regulated market. So you can only rent your house out 36 times a year to 36 different groups. Oh. So you can't, that makes it harder. Because
did you guys know that before buying the house?
Yeah. Oh, okay. But we like that area. We knew we were going to use the house a lot ourselves. Okay. So that's part of it. I think it's a good thing. It's like, it makes it so that city isn't going to have a ton of real estate investors who are never there. Like, we're there and like, we know our neighbors and we know like a lot of people in Palm Springs. Like, I actually feel more plugged into the community there. Okay. Than if they didn't have that, it would be like Scottsdale. Okay. A ton of Airbnbs. The owners are never there.
That's true.
They're like a lot cheaper.
Yeah. So I get that. Okay, interesting.
Good and bad. Good for the city, good for the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I guess not good if you're trying to make a lot of money.
Right.
I feel like if you are someone looking to get into Airbnb, I've done so much research now.
Yeah.
The best thing, a unique stay in an area where you can rent it out and like there's some sort of regulations in place, but they're gonna let you rent it out a lot. Like an A-frame, tree houses, those do the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, I think ours has been worth it because if it breaks even and I'm able to use it and the house has appreciated in value. Yeah. And every year there's like $10,000 into the equity that essentially by renting it out we have paid for. Yeah. So it's been worth it because the home appreciated a lot. Yeah. But I don't know. It's like, that was luck. Okay. I mean, who knew that the housing market was going to go that crazy? Right. I don't know. You can't always count on the home appreciation.
Totally. Did you and your sister have savings set aside intentionally to eventually like buy a home and do this? Or was it kind of spur of the moment or like within the months where you're like, hey, like this came up on the market or like, you know what I mean? Like, or did you guys have intention that you wanted to do this and eventually rent out an Airbnb?
Yeah, we had the intention for a while. And because I'm just always a saver, like I'm just always kind of like saving money for something like that. Yeah. I guess. I don't know. Okay. I just am always sort of like that. I'm like, I know I want to invest in something. Yeah. And then once we landed on Palm Springs, it was probably like the idea was in our head for a full year, I would say. Probably 4 to 6 months of seriously looking before finding the house. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I just always had the intention of, I want to own a home one day.
Yeah.
So
you just always had a good amount of savings too. Do you have a percentage you would like recommend for anyone? Like if anyone wants to be really savvy with saving the way you have, what's like a basic percentage of total income you're doing? How much would you say you would put aside to like have substantial savings?
Oh my God, it's so hard because it just depends on each month. And also what the job is. Like, I'll be real with YouTube. I was like a high earner doing that.
Yeah.
I'm making less this year, but just in general, there are months where I saved like 90% of my income, but it's because I was like making a lot and not spending, especially living in Seattle, I spent a lot less.
You saved 90%?
Like, only certain months where I made a lot though.
Okay, but then like if you're like on average, then what are you saving 30%?
Yeah, probably that or more.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I just
that's really good. That's really good.
Save. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, see that's like the thing though, right? It's like for people listening who want to like do what you were able to do, also it's like you have to be able to save that much. Yeah. Right? Which I can't say a lot of people have that discipline.
Yeah. But I also found something where like I didn't feel like I had to be super disciplined because I found a job where I was making a good amount.
Yeah.
And leaning into that, like if you find something that works, and like I've always had goals, like I write down like this is how much I want to make in a year, even if it sounds crazy. Like there's something to it where you kind of start looking for ways to do that, or I think it's important. Like if you can't even write down how much you want to make, like you clearly don't believe that you can do it.
True.
Like it's the first step in believing that you can do it. So it's important to like have those goals.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first thing, is recognizing like I have a goal of how much I want to make. It will help you earn more, because I feel like that's
such top of mind. Then like, becomes, and like I agree with that. I think it becomes like a mental thing, because that's all you start to envision, and then you start to like practice like habits that like work towards that. I feel like at least that happened for me when I got into like the entrepreneur world, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm curious about travel hacks really quick. Like, do you have any travel credit cards you'd recommend? Because I know you travel quite a bit. Like you are a traveler. You're definitely a traveler. And so like, you know, especially for anyone who's a longtime follower of you, definitely is probably curious, like what are your travel hacks? And it's considering you're a saver, right? Like, and you're not like a huge, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I'm personally curious too, because I know Natalie and I talked about like our personal travel hacks, and like she talked about credit cards, but
I do love the Delta Reserve Amex card, because I fly Delta a lot. But what I did, because I know Delta can be more expensive a lot of the time, I just one year looked up my flight confirmations and saw which airline I had flew the most in the past year, and it was Delta. Just by chance of what companies, if I had worked with, if someone booked my flight working with a company, it was Delta. It was, you know, they're a big airline, so I would say look up the one that works for you in that way. I did get the Delta Reserve card. It's $500 a year. But you get lounge access when you fly Delta, and I fly enough that it's worth it. And like I never spend money on food when I'm at the airport.
Really?
Because I have lounge access. And I have even had days where like I flew to San Francisco one day, for example. I had breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the airport lounge.
Oh my gosh.
You can go in the Delta Sky Club after you land. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah.
Oh,
if you fly Delta. So you can go and like get a snack. The only time you don't want to is if you're in a hurry or you checked a bag. But you can still check a bag, and like they'll hold it for you somewhere, and you can go like eat really quick. Like I've done that if I just like want to. I regretted actually not doing it when I landed here. Because I got food in the airport. I was like, why didn't I do that? I love that. I think another thing, because I will say, like, if you don't travel that often, not worth it to get those credit cards.
Good.
Yeah, just because.
And what would you say often? Like, how often are you flying, for example?
Probably multiple times a month. Yeah, at least twice a month.
Yeah.
You think about
that is such like the life of us, you know, nomad entrepreneur YouTube creators. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like we're kind of always.
I don't mean to, and I always say I'm going to travel less, but then I come.
But sometimes it's just
a video idea. To go. I'm like, oh my god, this treehouse property that's in Texas, and like, But
that would be like what Ramit Sethi calls like your money dial, right? Like, you know, he references like money dials, as he puts it, is like instead of budgeting where you even everything out, you prioritize spending your money in 1 to 3 areas areas of life that like bring you joy and like actually bring you the return. So like for someone it could be coffee, for someone it could be designer bags, for someone else it could be travel. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just like you gotta be self-aware of what brings you that joy. Because for someone like might not care much about designer bags but loves to always fly, honestly, like first class or whatever, because they travel frequently and the comfort matters, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's where I've learned to like judge less on how people spend, because it's like as long as it brings the return, too, right?
I'm not big into buying, I guess, like designer things as much because I value real estate. Even though I like that stuff and I like appreciate it, but I'm just like, oh, it like hurts me to do that because I'm like, but even though I want to sometimes. But I have 2 more hacks. Yeah. One that I've been doing recently as I travel, pack protein bars.
Oh,
because the amount of times I've spent money on like Postmates breakfast because there was nothing around or whatever, or I just get really hungry and the only thing around and you're traveling, you're not home. I think I brought 3 protein bars. I'll bring 1 for each day. Yeah. You'll never regret it. It comes in handy.
That's so true. And that's so true.
Yeah, it will tide you over so that you don't end up spending like $15 or $20 because the only thing around is like whatever that is. But I still, you know, love to eat like my actual meals, but it just comes in handy. So I'm not.
Especially when you're just like hungry and you need something immediately.
Yeah. That's when you make like a rash decision on something. Yeah. And then the other one is like anytime I go somewhere, especially Europe or New York, I take the public transportation as much as I can.
Yeah. I feel that.
I just find it to be more convenient. I know I used to not, though. I would rely on Uber. You're going to spend way more on Ubers. Yeah. Like, that's what I like about being in New York, too. You can take the subway. It's way cheaper. Right. You can walk.
And then you can also create like boundaries of like this is what I do. Like if I'm out at night, I definitely will like safety wise would take a car home. But like if I know I'm gonna go to dinner, sure. But it's like if I know especially I'm gonna like go out later that night and I know like I'm running to and from like meetings or whatever, I really try my best to leave early so I can use the subway and save money that way. But just like being mindful about that stuff, you know? Totally. And I just think it's like you said, getting in the habit of thinking about that stuff and like knowing like, okay, these are the times I'll be willing to spend on a car. It'll be, I don't know, after 9 p.m. And it's like everything before that, it's like I will subway. Yeah. Stuff like that, you know?
A big one too is like an Uber to and from the airport. That is easily, here going to be like $70 usually at least. Yep. But I always check where I'm going. Do they have a train into the city? Like I went to Chicago recently and realized like, oh, it's like $5. You just take a train. Yeah. It took a little bit longer, but I was there for like, I wasn't in a big hurry. So I was fine with it.
Right. Yeah. It's like so funny though. I love how you talk about how much you save and like you're mindful about these things when some might be like, oh, like, why do you need to if you're doing so financially well? But then also the argument is like, well, you can only be doing so financially well if you're also mindful with how you spend money.
And it's just never guaranteed too. Like I keep that in mind where I'm like, oh, what, you know, I don't think I would get canceled, like knock on wood, but you know, if short form takes over and like, for example, I know like this year I am making less than last year and I'm like, oh, I'm really glad that I saved a lot and invested and didn't just like spend all of it on like, I don't know, renting a boat or something random. I actually wanted to buy a boat. It's so funny.
Oh, really?
I was like, oh, that'd be so fun in Seattle in the summer. But I'm like, Shelby, no, do that when you are like, have more time because that's a lot of maintenance. Like that's it just sounded fun. But. Yeah,
I was like, that's funny. Yeah. I could see you saying that. Okay, well, I want to ask you 2 questions from the card game. Last few questions. Okay. Okay, first one. What are the top 2 you look for in a romantic partner? Physical chemistry, lifestyle compatibility, emotional compatibility, and intellectual compatibility.
Oh my god! Wait, can I see the card?
Yeah. So like, see this one.
Well, you know, that one's funny like a whole list. Clearly, lifestyle compatibility is low because I'm in a long distance relationship.
Oh, are you guys really? I didn't know. I was always wondering. Are you guys like still long distance?
Yeah. Damn. I know. So I'm like, okay.
You guys probably have some really good communication skills.
Yeah, but it's fun because we go on a lot of trips.
Okay, I've always heard that, especially from entrepreneur friends that are in long distance. They often see each other still frequently because they fly often. So then it almost doesn't feel long distance, like compared to a traditional one, because because both are entrepreneurs or like they do their own thing basically, and they're often able to travel or have a reason to be like, hey, do you want to come to this too?
Yeah.
So I kind of like that lifestyle. I don't know.
The only way it works.
Yeah.
Like if we both had 9-to-5s, there would just be no time.
Right.
But I can kind of plan things out where, I'll be in Greenville and I'll be editing.
Yeah.
I'll still have something to work on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we make that work.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, so that one definitely not. I would say physical chemistry is important, and emotional and intellectual. I would say emotional over intellectual, although those are tough.
It's like if you had to pick, like, rank it top 2, which would it be? So
I would say physical and emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel that. Second one, if you had to pick one, what is the most important value you would teach your children? Honesty, kindness, or courage?
Oh my gosh. Honesty, kindness, or courage. I feel like kindness.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what matters, like, at the end of your life. You know what I mean? Like, were you a good person? I feel like that, yeah. Courage is really important too, though.
Yeah.
Like,
for me, it would be between honesty and kindness.
Yeah.
I think kindness and then honesty and then courage. Yeah, being truthful.
Yeah.
Okay, last 2 questions. Do you have a book recommendation that you would share with the audience that you feel like is valuable? It could be business, finance, fiction, personal development.
I'm trying to think of what books I've read recently. Oh, I love Atomic Habits.
Oh, okay.
It's a classic. I bet someone said it before, but that book really, like, not only does it motivate you to build better habits, but I feel like you end up actually doing it. Whereas a lot of books, you'll read things and learn it, but, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
If you can take away one, I feel like you're probably not going to remember everything from every book, but if you can take away one thing that's helpful, that one has helped me.
Yeah. His email newsletter is really good.
Oh, well,
you should subscribe. It's a really good one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, last question. It's something I ask every guest on the show. But in reflection of your life and your career journey and even like your relationship, what would you say ultimately fulfills you in life?
Oh my gosh, this is kind of a tough question. I feel like the most fulfilling thing is just like listening to what I actually want to do and doing it, which can be harder. I don't know, because, for example, I make a lot of videos. Sometimes some I think are going to do well. Sometimes it's not super fulfilling, but sometimes I just like want to make it and I don't care if it's going to do well.
Okay.
Listening to whatever that is, like doing stuff that's not always for the money, taking a risk on it even, has been the more fulfilling thing. Just following what I'm intrinsically motivated by, I guess, is pretty much always more fulfilling than chasing the numbers on something. It's always more fulfilling. Kind of just listening to your intuition on that, which can be hard to do.
I really like that. Ooh. Yeah. That is so good. Yeah, you shared a lot of great nuggets today.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much, Shelby. Yeah. Where can everyone find you? Share your YouTube channel, your social media handles, wherever.
Yeah, Shelby Church on everything. YouTube, Instagram, even TikTok.
Yeah, you're on TikTok?
Yeah, like I try and post here and there. I don't take it as seriously, but it's fun.
Yeah,
all of that.
Amazing. Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
This was awesome.